Welcome, everybody. We're going to get started here in a few minutes. We're going to let everyone log on. Again, if you're just joining us, we're going to get started here in a few minutes. We're just letting everyone log on. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone, to the Vendor Marketing Conference for Information Technology Staff Augmentation Contracts, or otherwise known as the ITSAC. A few housekeeping I would like to go over before we get started is you can change your audio by switching between your computer audio and your phone call, between a phone call. Also, attendees are muted today. And if everybody could please raise their hand so I can verify that y'all can hear me. Perfect. I see the hands go up. Okay, go ahead and please lower those. I also want to mention that the chat is disabled today, but please submit all the questions in the Q&A option. Also, the handout will be made available for everyone in the addendum. I would also like to introduce all the speakers today. My name is Brianna Ballinger. I am a hub coordinator. With me, we also have Alexis Jimerson. She's procurement lead. We have Marie Cohan, the statewide digital accessibility program manager, Stephanie Harrison, the director of cooperative project procurements, and Vanya, she is the co-op procurement lead. I will now turn it over to Alexis.
Good morning, everybody. Today we are going to, I'm going to go over the agenda really quickly. We will provide the scope for this upcoming solicitation for ITSAC, and we'll go over the DIR overview, the cooperative contract solicitation process, electronic and information resources, EIR accessibility, that will be covered by Marie. The hub subcontracting plan, that will be covered by Brianna. Responding to DIR solicitations, and we will give some general information for the vendors and next steps. The discussion and questions, this is the part where we ask you guys to use the Q&A function in the Zoom meeting, and then we'll close the conference. Next slide. So we're going to go over the scope for this upcoming procurement. First of all, we want to thank everyone for attending and participating in DIR solicitation process. Your participation helps us have a successful solicitation and better serve our customers. The scope of this procurement is to provide information technology staffing to eligible DIR customers through our DIR contracting vehicles. We are resoliciting RFO DIR-CPO-TMP-579. It is, I would like to note, if you are a current vendor under this RFO, we will need you to answer this solicitation if you are looking forward to being a ITSAC contractor in the future. DIR plans or may make multiple awards from this RFO. Excuse me, I guess we're all a little tongue-tied this morning. Next slide. Okay. The purpose of this market engagement, of course, is to inform our new vendors and our existing vendors of upcoming solicitations and provide you with information to be a successful respondent. We use these events to make you aware of changes at DIR and to promote hub vendor networking. We also want to help reduce costs by giving you advance notice so you have ample time to gather information for your response. We feel that this fosters better solicitation responses, which allow us to more easily evaluate and award contracts when warranted. Clear, thought-out responses are easier to evaluate. It saves us time and allows us to better serve our customers in the state of Texas. These market engagement also promote competition, which as a state entity, we're required to promote competition to get the best value for our customers. And the information provided helps to remove barriers to respond and helps you as the vendor be able to give a more complete and comprehensive response. Next slide. DIR is looking for partners and not vendors. Vendors are someone who promotes or exchanges goods and services for money. People acting in this role, they're typically reactive. DIR wants partners. We look for partners that are proactive and want to provide the best service for our customers. We expect that our partners will listen to customers' business needs and provide recommendations based on those needs. State entities are charged with being good stewards of the taxpayers' money, and we expect that you share that mindset as a contract holder. Next slide. As a partner, we expect that you will understand the customer's needs and offer best solutions. We expect that your first priority is to understand that need and offer the best solutions, well thought out solutions, tailored to the needs expressed by the customers. We look for feedback on how we can make our solicitations better, and we encourage your input and encourage you to use the Q&A function to engage us. Better solicitations contribute to the overall success of our contracts for DIR and for its customers and for you, the partner. Next slide. So questions and feedback, as I said before, we do, and this event is designed to engage with you, potential respondents, or others that have interest in the RFO. DIR is sharing our information, but we are most interested in your feedback. Participants, please use the question and answer communication feature to ask questions or seek clarification regarding the RFO scope or anything that's said during this presentation. And please provide us with the feedback as this helps us to make a better solicitation and provide better offerings for our customers as a whole. And later on, these slides will be posted, so you will have them for reference later if you need to relook at some information. Next slide. Next, I'm going to cover the DIR overview. Next slide. We're going to start with the cooperative contracts that's shown over in your upper right-hand corner. These contracts are do-it-yourself. They cover hardware, software, DBITs or deliverable-based IT contracts, staffing services, and bulk purchasing. This is the area that our staffing contracts that we are going to reprocure will fall under. This is a do-it-yourself model for the customer where they can go procure hardware, software products, and take advantage of any bulk purchasing initiatives that we have posted. The next quadrant is the CCTS Technology Services. DIR is responsible for the Capital Complex telephone system. If you happen to work near or at an agency near the Capitol or call your legislator, the CCT is a product of DIR. We are also responsible for internet network operations for the state of Texas and for all of our customers who use these services. Security operations and keeping the state secure, and our operations secure for customers who utilize DIR services. These are handled through our Network Security Operations Center. And then the next on the list is Shared Technology Services. This is our outsourced managed IT. It's the model for this is we do it for you. Services available, these services are available to our customers and require an agreement with DIR and include our data center services, the Texas.gov portal. The Texas.gov portal lets you renew your car registration. And that is a product of our DIR open data portal. The Open Data Portal is a free state repository for public data and security services, which are services available to keep our customer system operating securely. And finally, policy and planning. DIR is responsible for the IT strategic plan for the state. We work for the legislator and state leadership to make sure that we're in a position to collect information and inform the state legislator about where things are with respect to technology in the state. We are responsible for the IT for the whole state of Texas, knowing what the plan is for the next year and projecting out 3, maybe 5 years down the road. DIR provides IT standards for the state of Texas and is a resource for you and our customers to help set IT standards for your entities. And with I think we just finished our legislative session. And so there's always new things and coming out of legislation. And so we are responsible for keeping up with that. Next slide. Here we're showing you a list of eligible DIR customers. As you can see, we serve 183 Texas agencies and institutions of higher ed, 6,200 plus local government, and that includes cities, counties, public school districts, municipalities, junior college districts, and special purpose districts. We also serve other organizations. Here listed is ERCOT and private schools, private education entities, public safety entities, and hospitals. This list shows the universe of DIR customers and especially for procurement opportunities. So these are the people who utilize our contracts and therefore provide the customer base for you. Not every program and area function serves all of these organizations, but as we explore different DIR functions, we will indicate the relevant customer base. Next slide. Okay, so cooperative contract benefits. What are the benefits? Cooperative contracts, they create savings. They leverage the state's buying power to lower prices and contain best value. You heard me mention before about bulk purchase initiatives. Those are particularly useful in saving the customers time and money when purchasing large quantities of equipment or services. The other benefit is it streamlines our purchasing process. It reduces purchasing time for the customer as well as for the vendor, and contract cycle time. It reduces duplicate efforts. We do the heavy lift to put in place a master contract, and so it makes it a little faster and easier for the customers that use our master contracts to get a PO in place. And it gives you access to historically underutilized businesses or hubs. You will see throughout any solicitation that we post that there are hub goals, and we are required to try and reach those goals, as are the customers that use our contracts. And the benefits for vendors: it simplifies sales process for you, gives you access to these public entities, and gives you access to approximately 3.05 billion in sales per year. Next slide. And here we see how that 3.05 billion is parceled out. The biggest note to note here is that though we have a statute that requires state customers to purchase with us, we also have a lot of customers that come to purchase through us because it is an easier process, meaning they're not required, but they still purchase through us. Education makes up the largest percentage of sales at 29%, followed by state agencies at 25.5%, and then local governments at almost 26%. Higher ed at 14%, and the remainder of those other organizations make up the rest of the pie, the out of state. And this just represents what our fiscal year 2022 sales were for the cooperative contracts. Okay. Next, we are going to go through the cooperative contract solicitation process, and Vanya Raymakers, who's also a procurement lead here, is going to talk more about that. And I'll turn it over to you, Vanya.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very delighted to be here and to assist Alexis with this project. It's kind of fun, and I like to go on to the next slide, please. So one of the things I want to make absolutely sure that everyone understands is that DIR does not have an application process. I cannot tell you how many times we get that question as to how do I get on the DIR list? How do I get into the DIR program? Well, this is how. You must respond to a solicitation. It is very important that vendors understand the process. DIR is an organization that facilitates the procurement process for our customers. Therefore, instead of our customers spend 6 to 8 months procuring something, they will just use our contracts to avoid that length of time, and DIR gets to do what we call the preliminary work for the solicitation process so that our customers can save money and can save time for the state of Texas. And because DIR is so successful at what we do, our customers have increased incredibly through the years. Every year, the legislature approves somebody else to be part of our customer base because, believe it or not, DIR is the #1 cooperative program contracts in the world, as far as I'm concerned. Pretty much in the United States, because we have over 50 plus states outside of Texas that is using DIR contracts. And for you, the vendor, this is a great exposure. So responding to the solicitation process is the beginning. So let's start where DIR starts. So we here at DIR plan the procurement opportunities. We make sure that we do a pre-solicitation notice, that we do this type of engagement, a market engagement. We request comments from both vendors and customers to allow us to prepare a solicitation that addresses our issues from the previous years. So planning is a big part of our process. And again, keep in mind, we are doing all this planning so the customers don't have to. Then we put the solicitation in place. We make sure that we have a pre-proposal conference, which I hope all of you attend. And some vendors tells me that the pre-solicitation conference is about what they heard here today, so they don't attend. I don't agree with them. You can never get enough information to prepare the perfect solicitation response. And from experience, I can tell you, it takes time to be good enough to put together a good response. And that's what we're trying to help you do. We're trying to help you get the best response in place so that you can be part of our DIR family and our DIR vendors, partners. So we have a question and answer period during the solicitation. We have a response instructions. We have evaluation criteria. We have the value adds, which means what can we provide, what can the vendor provide our customers that adds value to the solicitation that we are advertising. And then once you respond, there's a timeline, you respond by that timeline, we will begin evaluation and an award. So we start with the administrative review. What that tells me is I want to make sure, one, you read the solicitation package. Two, that you respond to the solicitation according to what the scope of the solicitation is. So we make sure you sign the documents, because remember, if you propose to me something and you don't sign the dotted lines, that is not a proposal. It is not acceptable. That tells me that you wish to do business with DIR, but you don't know if you do. So administrative review, make sure you sign your documents. We make sure you provide the right documents. We make sure your financial stability is according to the requirements of the DIR RFO. And then a bunch of the administrative review is pretty much pass and fail criteria. If you do it right, you pass. If you don't, that's where you stop. You do not move forward. DIR has a clarification part of the process. Once we do the first evaluation, there are things we're going to need clarification on that we might not understood or that might didn't seem right. Mostly this happened during the hub reviews and financial reviews. There's some clarifications, okay? But keep in mind, administration review, checking the exhibits, checking signatures, those are not minor things. Those are very important steps. You must sign your documentation when you're providing a proposal to DIR. Then we have our normal evaluation. We're going to evaluate the technical qualifications, whatever the evaluation criteria are for the solicitation, we are going to do that evaluation. And once that is completed, we'll have a list of vendors that made it through the first 3 steps. Now we're going to enter into negotiations, okay? Next slide. So the opportunity for DIR to engage incumbent and potential respondents through the market engagement notice and other pre-proposal events. We like to plan, we like to get information like this forum today is for you to tell us, what do you think our solicitation needs to be better than before? Or what is it that you have that is new in the market, that is new into staffing, that you want to provide us so that we can use that as part of our planning process to make sure we address all the needs, we address all the things that are happening in the market today as far as staffing is. And one of the things that has come up a lot, of course, through COVID, the entire staffing availability of the world has changed. We all know that. So this is a staffing contract. There are too many pieces that we are going to need to collect, too much information in order for us to have a successful solicitation. So please provide us your input, give us the benefit of your knowledge. We are DIR. We don't know everything. We like to get input. We like for you guys to join us, become partners, join us on our vision for this new generation of staffing contracts so that we may address all the needs of our customers and also the needs of our vendors. Because we're partners, we need to take care of both sides of the coin, okay? This is an opportunity for DIR to engage, to really explain to you the process, to really provide you information. Next slide. So what else can we do? So we provide you lead time. That's what this planning does, right? We make sure we have all the staffing categories and the market has changed. We determine lessons learned and improvement from last year, from our previous solicitations. We make sure that you are in good stand with the state of Texas. So that's what you do. You need to make sure that your DUNS number with the Dun & Bradstreet financial review is correct. You need to make sure that your franchise tax with the state of Texas is active. You need to make sure that your registration with the Secretary of State to do business with Texas is active and it's correct. Addresses matter. Name of your company matters. So now is the time for you to make sure those things gets done before the solicitation comes out. So you're not scrungy for time, because if I believe this is a very time crunch kind of a solicitation, we don't have 6 months. So we're giving you plenty of time to make sure those things are done. This is a good time for our prime vendors to engage with hub partners. This is, I don't believe letters of authorization is valid for this solicitation, but it's something that we do for most of our solicitations. Same thing with our accessibility requirements, VPETs and PDAA. We're going to talk more about those later on, and you can see if it applies to you or not. The PDAA applies to everybody, no matter what you're selling, no matter what you're providing. VPETs sometimes have specific requirements that you will learn later on here for you to prepare yourself. So while DIR plans, you should be planning as well. Next slide. The process. So DIR post solicitation on the State Business Daily, ESBD. For you guys that do not know what that means, the state of Texas has a centralized place where vendors go to download documents and respond to solicitations. DIR does not provide these documents via email or in our portal, response portal. Our solicitation response portal does not provide these documents. Legally, the only place you can download documentation to respond to a solicitation is the ESBD, okay? And there are vendors that are gonna have issues. Just keep in mind, sometimes you gotta use Google Chrome to download these documents because they're big. The solicitation is gonna include a background, requirements, instructions, evaluation criteria, key dates, potential contract documents for you to review. So again, how good is your response is how good you read these documents. And when you don't understand something, that's when you ask a question. We are here to help you have a better response package. So DIR entertain vendor questions during this time. We are going to role question and answer process, and sometimes things are not clear, asks for clarity. DIR post addendums to the ESBD. Again, we do not provide these documents individually. Be sure to monitor the ESPD for updates on any of the solicitations. Once this seminar is over, we are going to entertain your questions. We're going to create a document for this market engagement Q&A, and we will post that on the ESPD for you to have. We also will post more information. Next slide. So again, we're going to establish designated points of contact. This is important to keep what I call the playing field totally equal to all vendors. So nobody can say they had a leg up on something because they talked to somebody inside a DIR. So you can only contact one person, and that person gives you the information that you need. Always contact the procurement lead for all solicitations, which will be listed in your solicitation package. So we're going to make sure that we respond to our goals and objectives of the state of Texas. We're going to address instructions, make sure you understand the instructions, comply with instructions, okay? And ask questions. It's better to ask questions than to have your whole solicitation response disqualified. So please ask the right questions. Review the response, review it again. Don't submit an incomplete response. Make sure it's comprehensive package. Acknowledge all the addendas posted, because if an addendum changes anything in the solicitation package and you did not read that addendum, your response may not be the response correctly. Your response might be missing documents or might be providing missing information. So addendums are important to a solicitation process. It provides you additional information or any changes to the original package for you to better respond. And the most important thing I can tell you today on the solicitation process, you must have an authority person to sign and bind your response document. As I told you before, if you provide me a document with no signatures, to me, it's just a wish. It is totally disqualified from the beginning. Nobody's going to look at it. It doesn't matter. It has to be a legal authority. It has to be a legal signature. Next. So you need to be patient, okay, as we evaluate your response and prepare for the next steps on the process. DIR has wonderful staff. We do everything very quickly. We try our best to be efficient, but again, you have to keep in mind the numbers game, right? There's a few of us and 300 of you. So be patient, and we are going to keep you always informed when the evaluations are complete, when the next step is. It's going to be posted on our website under our solicitation page. We'll tell you this RFO is in planning, this RFO is in pre-solicitation notice, this RFO is now moved to posting, this RFO is now in evaluation. We keep you informed through our website. So be aware of that page, keep it marked on your favorites, and keep up with what's going on with that solicitation for your benefit. Be sure to comply with our interaction policy. Avoid contacting anyone that is not the contact person. That can disqualify you immediately. So don't do all that work and then make a phone call to the wrong person and lose it all that you worked so hard for. And be aware that DIR follows the laws of procurement. We cannot make any exceptions to specific legal requirements of the solicitation process. We can only tell you what it is, but we cannot. You can, I think God can change our mind, but that's going to be pretty difficult to communicate with. So make sure you're following the law. Make sure you follow the rules of the solicitation, because DIR will. The integrity of the solicitation process is the most important part of our job, and we take it very seriously, okay? So make sure that when you have discussions to clarify requirements, that you do it through the solicitation process channel, your Q&A, and your contact person, okay? We will notify responsive once evaluations are completed and DIR has identified the apparent awardees to indicate or not if we're going to invite you to negotiations or not. We will keep you informed during this whole process, okay? Next slide. So DIR considers any new information obtained orally or in writing through this process. It's not going to be accepted because we need to make sure that everything is in writing through the entire process. So make sure if you have a question, you ask it in writing and we will answer in writing, okay? Also, we want to warn you that DIR has a standard terms and conditions that is derived from our legal group and the legislative. So most of our terms and conditions is something that we cannot deviate from, but some vendors have some issues and do request exceptions. On this case, you should have very little exceptions, even entertain exceptions at all, because you are responding to a solicitation for staffing. So the standard terms and conditions should be pretty easy for you to accept. And keep in mind that excessive exceptions requirement may automatically disqualify you because our timeline sometimes is very fast moving and we don't have time to negotiate exceptions. We have no authority to give you. So take that in consideration when you are preparing your response. Also, lack of response to DIR inquiries may result in cease of negotiations. So if during negotiation, we send you an email, we said, we need this information. You don't answer us on a timely basis, which to me, 72 hours. Some other people might be more lenient, but when you're dealing with hundreds of vendors, 72 hours to respond, maybe 5 days. Do respond to us because lack of information and will definitely cease negotiation because of our timeline. So be responsive as we are to you. Next slide. Now I'd like to pass it over to Marie. She's going to talk to you guys about accessibility requirements and how that apply to this solicitation. Take it over, Marie.
Thank you, Vanya. I appreciate that. Hello, everyone. I'm Marie Cohan. I am the statewide Digital Accessibility Program Administrator, and I'm going to go over the digital accessibility requirements for the solicitation. Next slide, please. So a little bit of background around digital accessibility in the state of Texas. When we say digital accessibility, we're referring to the inclusive practice of designing and building technology that removes barriers for people with disabilities. That technology includes electronic and information resources and information and communications technology. Under Texas Government Code 2054, state agencies and institutions of higher education must procure electronic and information resources that comply with accessibility standards defined in Texas Administrative Code and through the World Wide Web Consortium standards. We also require specific documentation that I'll go through and let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, supporting documentation. The policy-driven adoption for accessibility is a vendor self-assessment. This is required, like Vanya said, regardless of what your response offerings are. So whether you're responding about a product that you have or a service, you still need to complete the PDAA. I'll go into more detail on that later. We also have the Vendor Accessibility Development Services Information Request. This is a DIR form that is specific to development services. So if you're not responding to a development solicitation, or if part of your package doesn't include development services, then this would not be a required document. And then we have the Accessibility Conformance Report, which is a completed VPAT. And I'll go into more detail on what those two documents are, but this document is required for any type of product offering in your response. And it is required for each product offering in your response. Next slide, please. So some additional document considerations. DIR is able to require additional supporting documentation at any point. State of Texas agencies and institutions of higher education have the discretion to require higher standards than what DIR requires. So I just point that out so you can be aware. The state standard is WCAG 2.0 AA. That is also the federal standard, but the federal government has said that any agency or government entity can require a higher standard. And so some of our agencies are at WCAG 2.0 AA. And then vendors also must be prepared to provide the most current accessibility conformance report if requested by a state agency or an institution of higher education. Keep in mind that these cooperative contracts at this point in time are the master contracts that are procured by DIR, but our customers may buy off of these contracts 3 years from now or 4 years from now. And so they have the discretion to request all new documentation from the vendors. So just be prepared for that. Next slide, please. So the policy-driven adoption for accessibility, this is a self-assessment regarding the vendor organization. So basically your organization, it is a spreadsheet that is included in your solicitation package. There are questions on there based on accessibility within your organization. So what kind of training do your employees go to? What kind of policies do you have in place? How have you adopted accessibility into different areas of the organization like HR, IT services, procurement? These are the types of areas on the PDAA. Again, this is not about your product offering or your service offering. This is about your organization. We would just like to see where you're at on your accessibility journey and how mature your processes are, your policies. And so this document will help us understand that. And this document also can be used by you all to help develop a better accessibility program within your organization. So it is a valuable document. It is absolutely required. If it is not complete or has not been submitted, it is a grounds for disqualification. Next slide, please. This is the PDAA maturity matrix. So I put this in here, and this is also on our website, just to demonstrate the levels of maturity within an organization. So it has the breakdown of components, and you can see the first launch column is basically you're at the early stages of your maturity journey. And then as you start integrating processes and training throughout the organization, you move along the maturity journey. And then the optimized column, the very last column, is obviously the best way or the best place to be with regard to maturity. And this just shows that you have detailed processes in place. They're documented, they're repeatable, they're auditable, and there's good collaboration going on about accessibility within the organization. Next slide, please. So the Accessibility Conformance Report, or completed VPAT, is a document that demonstrates how a product conforms to WCAG standards and success criteria. The VPAT is what is included in the solicitation. It is a template. So DIR provides the template for you in the solicitation packet. If your organization has not completed the template to create an ACR, you can do so with the template that is included. Once the template is completed, it is known as an accessibility conformance report. And how the template is completed is typically a product owner or product manufacturer will test their product against the standards and the success criteria in WCAG, and they will document how their product conforms to those specific success criteria. So it's kind of a report card on how your product scores against those industry standards. DIR does review these. We do require one for every single product offering in your response. We will do a sample audit of the ones that are submitted. And if there are incomplete ACRs or missing ACRs, that will impact the score, the pass-fail score. Next slide, please. So like I said a second ago, when you test your product against the WCAG standards and success criteria, the result of that testing will be, does your product support that specific standard? Does it support with exceptions? Does it not support? Is it not applicable, or was it not evaluated because that particular standard is at a higher WCAG level than what is required? What we would like to see is anything that requires an additional explanation. So if it doesn't fully support or supports with exceptions, we would like to see that explained on the ACR. There is a column for that. Again, if those are blank or if it's left incomplete, that does impact the score. And we do read through those different exceptions that are provided. Next slide, please. This is an example of the standards that are in the WCAG 2.0 AA. You can see that there's 4 categories that they're broken out into. So when we talk about digital accessibility, we want our technology to be perceivable. We want it to be operable, understandable, and robust. And basically the perceivable section covers anything for to ensure that technology can be heard by those that in an alternate way that those have hearing issues, or if someone has a vision impairment, we want to be able to provide it in a way that they can still consume it. Operable means that it works across different technologies, assistive technologies that are being used. Different navigation and peripherals for computers. Understandable covers anything related to like cognitive issues or neurodivergent folks that need to understand it in a different way. We want to make sure that it's very understandable and clear and concise, and that the information is front end loaded. And then on robust, we want to make sure that it is compatible across different platforms. So mobile, computer, different browsers, things like that. Next slide, please. The Vendor Accessibility Development Services Information Request is for development services. This is a DIR form. This is really used quite a bit by anyone coming in and doing like website development services or any kind of bespoke development services. I don't know that this is actually covered or one of the requirements in this particular solicitation, but for some reason, if you have any kind of specialized development that is required, you'll want to go ahead and complete this form. Next slide, please. So the VADSER form, just really quickly, collects the information about your organization, and it does detail what qualifies in here. Next slide, please. And then you can see that some of the questions will go through, again, what type of training do your developers have? What does your development lifecycle look like? How do you handle any defects or errors? What kind of corrective action plans do you have in place? We do ask for sample work in here or some kind of reference of your work. So these are the types of questions that are on the VADSER form. And again, we require as much detail as possible on this form. If there are blanks or very limited information provided, that will impact the pass-fail score. Next slide, please. So here are some additional resources. We do have resources on our website. We provide the VPAT template in the solicitation package, along with the VADSER template and the PDAA template. The PDAA template that is provided in your packet can be completed and submitted. You can submit the completed version. And then DIR also has a new training program for vendors. So we provide 4 digital accessibility courses. They are free to the vendor community. If you are interested in taking these courses, you can email me at statewide-accessibility@dir.texas.gov. Any communications that you send to me, even to request training for your organization, please copy Alexis on all of those emails. She is the procurement lead for this particular procurement. And these 4 courses are very specific to Texas, but there is helpful information in there for anyone outside the state of Texas. But they do have all of our Texas rules and laws in there. Next slide, please. This is my contact information. If there are any questions, again, anyone who reaches out to me with a question or a training request, please copy Alexis on those emails, and that way she can document and track everything. think that is it for me. I'm not sure who's up next, but I'll hand it off to whoever would like to step up. Thank you all.
Next up is Brianna, and she's going to go over the Hub Subcontracting Plan, or HSP.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brianna Ballinger, and we are going to go over their Hub Subcontracting Plan, or otherwise known as the HSP. All vendors are required to complete the Hub Subcontracting Plan, or the HSP, like known as the HSP. Please visit the comptroller link for the most current and approved copy of the Hub Subcontracting Plan. Please do not modify this document. It is an editable copy. All respondents, Hub and non-Hub, are required to submit an HSP. Failure to submit a completed signed HSP will cause your response to be rejected. This is a pass or fail item. There are 3 ways to complete the HSP. You will either self-perform, meet or exceed the Hub goal and complete method A, or you will not meet the Hub goal and complete method B. The Hub goal for this RFO is 26%. If your proposed subcontracting meets or exceeds the Hub goal set for this RFO, you will complete method A. Be sure to identify all Hub and non-Hub vendors you will be subcontracting with. Include the anticipated dollar amount and the expected percentages. So you will complete section 1, 2, 4, and method A. Please do not forget to sign and date your HSP in section 4. If you're going to subcontract below the Hub goal, you will complete method B. Be sure to solicitate to a minimum of 3 Hub certified companies and 2 minority trade organizations. You must allow 7 working days to respond to you before the due date of this RFO. Include your outreach to these entities with your HSP. So you will need to complete section 1, 2, 4, and method B. Please do not forget to include the approximate dollar amounts, percentages, and sign a date. If you are going to be self-performing, you will complete section 1, 2, 3, and 4. In your self-performing justification, you will identify how your company will fulfill this contract with its own staff, equipment, resources, and please do not say that you will subcontract in the future. Please tell us how you will fulfill this contract. We will complete a precursory review. Please submit that to us within 7 days before the RFO closes. We have included the DIR Hub email box here for you, and we are happy to assist you. Thank you. Sorry, not sure who's
Okay.
Sorry, I'm trying to get unmuted here. Next up, we have Stephanie Harrison, and she's going to present about responding to the DIR solicitations through our vendor information system.
Good morning, everyone. So I want to clarify a couple of things as we go through here. We're getting a lot of questions about when this will post. This is a fiscal year 2024 posting. All of the current contracts expire, and this is all posted on the DIR website. They all expire August 31st, 2024. And so we will not post this one until later on this year. But we're trying to prepare the vendor community for that in advance. And the vendor information system is one of those things that you can do in advance and be ready for, instead of waiting until right up until we post the solicitation to request your credentials for the vendor information system. For this particular proposal, we are only going to accept responses to the vendor information system. So please pay attention. We'll go over this during this time, and also during the pre-bid conference. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry, you already advanced. In order to get to the vendor information system, there is a link on the DIR website. I will show you how to navigate to that link, how to set up your account, and then how to submit your response. You will have to obtain credentials in order to get access to the vendor information system. That is a manual approval process on our end. So again, we ask that vendors not wait till the last minute to start that process. We do have a video on our DIR website that walks you through actually how to set up your full account. That video is how to ask for your credentials. Please go and review that video, watch the video, and then go in and request your Bitstamp account. There's a limited number of users per agency that can be on that account. So please watch the video, walk through it, and then set up your Bitstamp account in order to submit responses. What we're going to talk about here is actually how to submit your proposal. Next slide, please. Persons with disabilities who seek accommodations under ADA may request an alternative way to submit your proposal. If you're unable to submit it through the Bitstamp portal, you do need to request that in writing through the single point of contact for the solicitation, and please allow at least 5 business days for a response. Next slide, please. So after you've watched the video and have set up your account and you have everything ready to go, these are the following steps. So to respond, after you have your credentials, you have your login, you receive that email with that information, to get to your account to respond to solicitation, you can go to the Bitstamp vendor login. Next slide, please. Which is on the DIR website. So from the DIR website, you would go to I'm a vendor, and then there is a the schedule solicitation opportunities page, and then it takes you to there's a login or request credentials. And then once you click on the login, after you have your credentials, this page will show up. The top 3 tiles are the tiles for Bitstamp, and that is your account, open solicitations, and responses that you've already started or have submitted. The bottom 3 tiles here, the vendor information, about DIR, contact DIR, those take you back out to the DIR website and out of the Bitstamp portal. So to get to your solicitation and to respond to solicitation, if you haven't started one yet, after you have your account, you'll go to open solicitations. Next slide, please. Oh, next slide. Here you will have a list of the solicitations that are active and open for responses. This new ITSAC solicitation is not posted yet, so it will not show up in this list until it's actually posted and there's a response for you to submit something for. But you can go ahead and enable your solicitation account. The RFO number for this one will be slightly different. It's not 570. It is, Alexa, help me out on the RFO.
579.
Okay, so the RFO number for the new ITSAC solicitation will be DIR-CPO-TMP-579. Once that is enabled, you will be able to go in and select that RFO number, and that's after the solicitation is posted. Next slide, please. The next screen will be actually in the Bitstamp response. You'll need to pay attention to the due date and time. All responses are due on Central Time, so that is important. They'll be due at 2 o'clock on Central Time, regardless of the opening date for the bid. At 2:01, that submit button is disabled, and you are no longer able to submit, even if you have a response in progress. So that's very important to note. We have a lot of vendors that think that they can get in very last minute, and they wind up having technical issues. They have files that won't load, and we have a team of 2 or 3 on our side that are funneling all the calls and emails and everything for this. And so even at 2:01, if you don't have those documents loaded and have hit the submit button, you're not able to submit that response. To give you a little bit of a feel for the volume that we had the last time, we had close to 350 respondents, and out of those, we awarded less than half, not because they did not submit the responses. A lot of vendors didn't submit what they were supposed to, and they missed out on documentation, and so they kind of disqualified themselves in the process. Down at the bottom of the screen, you will see the RFO questions. This is where you'll submit your questions once the RFO is posted. You will submit your questions through Bitstamp up until the question closing period. Questions that are submitted outside of the official question window can be answered at the discretion of DIR, but we're not required to answer those questions that are submitted outside of that window. If it's a question that clarification would benefit the entire group, we may consider allowing that question through. So please pay attention to all the deadlines once the RFO is posted on whenever those question and answer period is open. You may continue to submit questions up to that question and answer period. We will have questions and answers from this webinar. We will also have potentially another webinar in July prior to the release of the solicitation, and then we'll have one at the pre-bid. After the pre-bid, the official pre-bid conference, when the RFO is posted, that window gets really short on whenever you can submit those questions. So please pay attention to all deadlines. Next slide, please. So the buttons on the previous slide show you what you need to do to get your response in. So response to solicitation or view response. That button is where you create your initial response to that solicitation. I can't tell you how many vendors will start a response and they never hit that submit button. We can't even see it on our end until the solicitation time and due date has passed and you've hit the submit button. So we have vendors that miss out on opportunities because they'll start a response, they've loaded their documents, but they never go back and hit that submit button. So if you intend on submitting, you have to complete the whole process. Kind of think of it to the equivalent of whenever we had to send paper documents in. If it didn't hit that bid room and get time, date, and stamped on time, if you're on the elevator and you get off at 2:01 and you hit that bid stamp, the solicitation room, you're still not able to submit your response. Our Bitstamp system acts the same way. It's just electronic. You have to submit it in order for us to get it. To ask a question, I kind of talked about that before. You'll see a log of the questions that your agency has submitted. You won't see everybody's questions that have been submitted, but it will track what ones you've submitted. The answers will not populate in that Bitstamp portal. It's just a log of the questions that you submitted and when. All formal answers will be posted formally on DIR's on the ESBD through an addendum or through a posting notification. So currently we have the pre-solicitation notice posted. The vendor engagement questions and answers will be posted as an addendum to that pre-solicitation notice. Subscribe to solicitation if you'd like to receive the addendum notifications. Notifications through Bitstamp, you need to hit subscribe and have enabled your account to receive notifications when you set your account up. So when you set your account up, there's you can list you have so many users on that account. You need to check the receive notifications button box in order to receive those. The view solicitation documents button navigates to the ESBD official posting where all the documents are posted. It's just a courtesy link to get you to that. If for some reason that link is not working, you would just need to go straight to the ESBD and look for Department of Information Resources and what posted, and then go and search for the solicitation because that's where all the formal documents are posted. Next slide, please. Okay. So this slide has a little bit more information on what you'll see once you've started your response. So once you click on respond to solicitation, your screen will change. You will have several buttons there available. You will have the delete button. That one is a delete everything that you've submitted up to date. So you want to be very sure that you're selecting that appropriately. Once you've submitted your response, then that button will change to withdraw. And a withdraw button does the same thing. It takes your response away. We can't see anything. It can't be considered. If you withdraw a response, you would need to start another submission and resubmit if you still plan to submit. The submit response record, actually I think that button is in a different location on the current site, but that submits the entire response for consideration. You can submit your response, and then like if we have an addendum and additional information needs to be changed, you are able to add documents to your response up until the date and time of the responses due. But again, once that time is passed, you are no longer able to make any changes to your solicitation. The create pricing form, I don't believe y'all will be using that button on the solicitation because this is a not to exceed rate. Those rates are still under review as to whether we're going to keep the current rates or whether we're going to change the ITSAC rates. So you would not be submitting a pricing form through Bitstamp for this particular solicitation. The new RFO, the new button under the RFO response document section is where you actually load your documents to the response. When you start loading your documents, there'll be a couple of drop-down boxes. You'll want to make sure you're loading the appropriate document, selecting the appropriate document name that goes along with that. So your Exhibit A needs to match up with the Exhibit A drop-down box. You also want to make sure that whatever you're calling your document that you're uploading does not exceed 80 characters. That includes spaces. It cannot have any special characters like punctuation in there other than, I believe, an underscore. So keep the name of your document to less than 80 characters. You'll be surprised how quickly the name of your document will get long. And it just needs to be pretty simple on what your document name is so we can find it in your solicitation response and make sure that you're responsive to the RFO. The vendor reference forms are a courtesy form that DIR uploads in Bitstamp that you can send from Bitstamp to your references, and it'll just keep a log of who you sent it to. It does not let you know if that reference actually sent the reference back into DIR. There'll be a dedicated mailbox to that. You can use that function in Bitstamp, or you can opt to utilize the vendor reference form that will be a part of the solicitation document and email those out on your own to your references. The vendor reference form does need to come back from the reference and will not come back from the vendors themselves. So again, we don't keep up with how many references have been received, who all has submitted a reference on your behalf, because we don't look at that information until after the due date for the response. So if you email and say, hey, have you received my 3 references? We're not even looking at that yet because the response is, it's still an active response, and we're not accessing those documents until after the due date and the time for responses to be due. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Alexis for general information for the vendors.
Thank you, Stephanie. So we are going to go over some general information for the vendors, and we can go to the next slide. So this is a demonstration on how to navigate the Bitstamp vendor login from DIR's homepage. When you go to www.dir.texas.gov, most of the information you will need is under the Selling Through DIR link shown here, located on the right side of the page. Once you click on that link, you will be taken to that page. Next slide. Here you will find the schedule of opportunities. This is the current and upcoming solicitation opportunities that we have. So you're able to view those there at that point. Next slide. The vendor Bitstamp guide is posted on DIR's website on the schedule of solicitation opportunities page. It's called out in red right here for the arrow, and the included link is here above the picture to show to help you navigate to that particular spot on our website. You will have to scroll down the web page for further information. Next slide. Okay, we're going to go over some lessons learned and top 5 reasons evaluations and contract negotiations are delayed or terminated. Reason number 1, incomplete responses. Unfortunately, we cannot evaluate or negotiate what's not there. If you submit an incomplete response, the evaluators cannot really evaluate what's not there. It makes your response less competitive because you will not get the benefit of the score from the parts that you left out. 2, missing pricing form. As Stephanie stated before, we won't be creating a pricing form for this, but I will go ahead and add that this missing documentation, so missing forms, will delay or terminate our evaluations or our contract negotiations. So we're hammering home, please do your responses in advance, check them over, make sure you submitted everything in a complete format so that we can evaluate and thoroughly. An incomplete hub plan. Brianna went over the steps for the hub plan. And as she stated before, this part is pass or fail. So this is what will keep you from getting evaluated or terminate you altogether. Missing or incomplete VPAT and PDAA. Again, that's back to required documentation. If the required documentation is not there, we cannot evaluate, we cannot negotiate. Excessive or material exceptions to DIR standard terms and conditions. This excessive exceptions to the terms and conditions can be a cause for us to cease negotiations. So I think Vanya already talked about that extensively. So we encourage you not to make excessive exceptions to DIR terms and conditions. Vendor information on response not matching what's in the Dunn and Bradstreet, DNB, or your vendor information not matching what is on the CMBL. So the takeaway from that is, please, please, please ensure that if you have a vendor name change or any kind of change to your information, that you make sure your information is matching across the different entities that we are registered under, that you're registered under. It does cause delays if we cannot match your information. Next slide. These are some DIR resources. These are some DIR resources, the Texas Open Data Portal. We encourage all vendors to regularly check the Electronic State Business Daily or ESBD, and the schedule of solicitation opportunities under our information for vendors page on our DIR webpage. Both of the links are listed here to keep you informed about upcoming solicitations. For more information on how to do business with the state of Texas, please visit the comptroller's webpage, and it is listed here for your information. Please do not panic. We will be posting these slides on the ESBD for your reference. And I'm sorry, Brianna, next slide. I'm just rolling along. General information. For general inquiries regarding this RFO, please contact me. That is Alexis Jimerson. My email address is displayed right here. I am the primary point of contact for this solicitation. For inquiries regarding bid stamp VIS, please contact Stephanie. And for inquiries regarding hub subcontracting plan, please contact Teresa William or the DIR hub email box listed here. For faster service, I believe, and Brianna, stop me if I'm wrong, but we are asking you guys to lean towards the group mailbox so that any of the team can answer those questions.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Next slide. Okay, next steps. Next slide. The release of the RFO. The release of the RFO is expected, as Stephanie said, to start with our 24 fiscal year, which starts in September. So we tentatively anticipate posting this September 1st. The RFO solicitation conference will be approximately 1 to 2 weeks following the release of the RFO. Posting time will be approximately 8 weeks, and we may consider additional time if necessary, but please plan to have your responses ready and saved and submitted through Bitstamp at the due date. Additional time is not a guarantee. Responses must be submitted as specified in the RFO and by the due date. And we're going to, again, advise you, please adhere to the points of contact in the RFO once it's posted. Until then, interested parties may contact the individuals listed on the slide for questions. But as Brianna and Marie have stated, please make sure you CC me, Alexis, so that we don't have any problems with outside contact rules. Okay. Next slide, discussion and questions. So we have some questions here, and I will read and answer as follows. One question was, when will the RFO come out? We've tentatively scheduled to post the RFO for September 1st. And the follow-on question, when can we have the link to the RFO? The solicitation will be posted and a link will be provided in the solicitation announcement. You are all encouraged to make sure that your vendor contact information is correct on the CMBL, because that is the list that we use to notify vendors of potential solicitations. How many vendors do we plan to select for this rebid? As Stephanie stated before, historically, we received a lot of responses, over 300, and we awarded half of that. There's no projected limit on the awarded contracts at this time. I think our biggest barrier to award at this point in time would be incomplete or inaccurate submissions.
Alexa, can I jump in on that one?
Yes, ma'am.
So a lot of our need for ITSAC is determined by the customers, and we plan to have a customer engagement very similar to this one to see what the need is. As Vanya mentioned earlier, staffing has become a huge issue, especially post-pandemic, and we don't know what the need is until the customers let us know, and our customer base is huge. So they will pretty much determine where the need is. And we have different categories in ITSAC, and we may determine that we need less in a certain categories, more in others. We're still in the planning and development phases, so we don't have a really clear projection of how many we will award. We will award to meet customer needs, and that tends to be over 100 ITSAC vendors historically, because there are different services, different levels that people provide. There's really not one, because of the way the ITSAC is, it has to be multiple vendors in order for it to be a successful part of the cooperative procurement program. So we're looking toward around, I would say at least 100 or more vendors under the ITSAC program to meet the customer need.
Okay. We got a question. We are a non-hub. Are we allowed to bid? Yes. You are allowed to bid. Will you share the slides after the presentation? Yes, this presentation will be posted to the ESBD for your reference. And Stephanie, we also post these to the YouTube channel, correct?
Yes, the recording will be posted to the YouTube. The documents will be a part of the ESBD posting.
Alex, I'd
Okay.
like to chime in for a second.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, on the question about I'm not a hub, can I still respond? Yes, you can, but please, you must provide a hub plan with your faith effort. Follow the instructions that Brianna gave us, because we have lost few vendors on previous, because they think they don't have to provide a hub plan. Every single vendor, hub or not hub, must provide a hub plan in order to qualify for this RFO. Just wanted to make
Yes.
that point. Thank you.
Vanya, thank you for saying that, because that is absolutely true. Okay, let's see. Next question I have here. What is the DIR cooperative program, contract program, and how does it apply to this RFO? The cooperative contract program is a do-it-yourself or self-service model of contracts where customers can go procure hardware, software, products and services, as well as staffing services contracts. And that this RFO is under the IT Augmentation Staffing Contract, or ITSAC services, which falls under the cooperative contract umbrella. The next question that we got, how do we become a partner with DIR? Is it just submitting a response to a RFP or RFQ? You become a DIR partner by submitting a responsive proposal and being awarded a DIR contract. Is there a timeline that will be released for the upcoming process? Yes, there is a tentative timeline in the pre-solicitation notice that's currently posted on the ESBD. There will also be a tentative timeline in the solicitation document that is posted. And again, we plan to post that in September to the ESBD. All right, let's see. Next question we have, will we receive a copy of this presentation later on? The answer to that is yes. What is the most common error of vendors' responses to be that were eliminated in the past? I think we went over a lot of these responses: submitted unsigned, incomplete or not completing the HSP or hub sub plan. Stephanie talked about the response not being saved and submitted in Bitstamp. And we also
another one that is pretty common is incomplete answers to responses. This is a highly competitive procurement. This is probably one of our more competitive procurements within DIR. As you heard, we had about 350 that responded. We awarded less than half of that. So in addition to vendors kind of excluding themselves from the process by submitting incomplete proposals, incomplete responses to the proposals, we can only use, and the evaluators only look at what you submit. So we cannot, and what is required. So everybody has to be evaluated on the same criteria. So if you submit additional documents that we don't ask for and reference those, we can't look at them. That's not a part of the proposal. And that's not how we asked everybody to submit. If you submit links to websites and say, please look here, if it's not actually in the document, we're not going to go search for it. There's way too many vendors out here that are all trying to get the same type of contract to have our evaluators go and make assumptions on what you intended to put in your proposal that isn't actually there. A link is a link. It just shows a direction, but it's not information that we're going to go and read and review unless we specifically ask for you to deliver that piece of information that way. So I would say about a quarter of the vendors disqualified themselves in the process from not reading the directions and following the directions within the RFO. So please pay attention to anything in the RFO and any addendum that come out, as we are asking for very specific criteria, very specific information for a reason. Adding additional information or leaving that information out is going to cause you to score lower than everybody. Then all of the vendors should do everything in accordance with the RFO directions.
Yes. Marie, I think this question is for you. Accessibility conformance report, since this is a staff augmentation contract and products are not being proposed, is the ACR required?
So since this is staff augmentation, if you're simply supplying staff, then no, the ACR is not required. If your staff will be providing any type of development services, then you will need to complete the VATSR.
Okay.
Is that next one for me too?
I think so. Can you please confirm that only PDAA and not the VATSR is relevant for ITSAC solicitation?
So the PDAA is required regardless of the type of solicitation. If it's a technology solicitation, the PDAA is required, period. The VATSR, it would be relevant for this particular solicitation if you have staff that will be providing development services, like if you have website development staff that will be contracted, you will need to submit the VATSR.
Okay.
Alexa, I'd like to add to a question, if you don't mind.
Yes, Vanya.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Stay unmuted.
Vanya, if you can hear me, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So I just want to clarify something about the cooperative program. Question is, as Alexa said to you guys, that it's a program where customers self-serve. But I would like to clarify in relation to this solicitation, the cooperative program itself is where we do all the work, as I explained earlier, for our customers, so they don't have to go out and solicit for their own staff. So instead of them doing the planning and all of the process of establishing staffing contracts for their agencies, DIR does all that work for them. So what the customers do is access our portal, look at all of our awarded contracts, and choose the contract to use that best serves their needs. That's where the self-serving comes up. So this solicitation is for DIR to establish contracts for our customer base to use, to request, and hire temporary augmentation staff to provide services for their agencies. I just wanted to make sure I clarify that, because the question seemed to be more about why we're talking about products when this is not for that purpose. This market engagement is to provide you an overall of DIR functions, but in relation to this RFO itself, solicitation, that's what the program is about. We establish the contracts for the customers to request to use these contracts and hire their own staff. I hope that clarified. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, the next question I have is, since this is more for IT staff, professional consulting and not for being a vendor, a little confused on why so much emphasis on product requirements rather than providing plan, design, implementation, oversight capabilities. Okay, so this is for IT staff professional or IT staff augmentation services. In this particular instance, the product that you're providing is the personnel and the services. The planning and design and implementation will be provided based on customer needs, and you will get that from the customer. The way we function is we are providing master contracts, basically, for the customers to utilize in their requests for resumes from the vendors. Okay, I have one more. Let's see. We are a non-hub. Are we allowed to participate in the solicitation? Yes, non-hubs are allowed to participate. And I think we answered that a little bit earlier. 19, can we submit the hub for the hub plan for review before closing date as we have in the past?
Yes.
Yes, you
We
can.
will do a precursory review 7 days before the closing of the RFO.
Okay. And the last question I have is how to get the single point of contact assigned. Fortunately, that has already been done. Alexis Jimerson, which is myself, I am your single point of contact. My contact information is posted in the pre-solicitation notice and is in this current slide that we will post to the ESPD. And let's see. I have one other question. Is there a scorecard, checklist, or spreadsheet template available to use as reference in responding to the RFO? I believe when we post the solicitation, there is a checklist included for respondents. No scorecard will be provided, but the evaluation criteria will be listed in the posted solicitation. So you will know what portions and what percentages will be evaluated and how your scoring will shake out. And Stephanie, stop me if I'm misspeaking. Where can we find an existing list of hub contractors for IT staff org? You can navigate to DIR's webpage and type in ITSAC and it will bring up staffing services and it will take you to a list of the current vendors that are listed.
Alexa, I believe the question is about hub contractors. So they can also find that on the ESPD CMBL list if they're looking for hubs to participate in their response with them.
Okay.
Brianna, are you able to
Not
answer
as
this
much.
a little bit
Yeah.
more?
Yeah.
From what I'm understanding from the question is existing list of like DIR hub contractors, then you would go to the website. But if you do need hub contractors in general, yes, you can go to either the CMBL or the ESPD. The CMBL. So the question is kind of vague.
Yes. We have one more question. We are participating for the first time. Can you please share responses submitted by current successful suppliers for our reference? Stephanie, I think that's a no, correct?
If you're wanting to request those, you have to go through the open records request to ask for other vendors' responses. They would not actually be quite very helpful because we've changed it since the last time. I mean, they're available. You may have to pay a fee depending on how many. Remember, there was over 300 responses, and so that's a lot to ask for, and it's everything dumped into a file. So as far as other vendors' responses, it's more important that you answer what is pertinent to your company for the information that is requested in the RFO. That's the better approach, in my opinion. But yes, if you want to go through the open records request process, you may have to pay a fee because those files are large and there's a lot of them in order to request that information. The current contractors for every co-op contract are posted publicly on the DIR website. So you are able to search. ITSAC has a list of current vendors. So you're able to search and see who the current vendors are, who has a contract. These are all $0 contracts. So you don't, DIR is not the customer here. So there's no dollar amount associated with the contracts. The customers utilize them and the spend is through the customers, and that's at a customer level. So whenever these contracts are awarded, these are master level contracts that DIR puts in place through the cooperative contracts program. Our customers are able to go and pick and choose which ones they want to use, which ones meet their RFO scope, which ones meet their SOW, whatever service that they're trying to fulfill through their own solicitation, and they will have the requirements that they have. There was a question earlier about a checklist. We have the checklist for submission. The scoring sheet is not posted as a part of that. You have the scoring percentages as to what is weighted what in which amounts in the RFO. That is available. Sometimes the customers, whenever they are soliciting specific ITSAC services, they won't have a requirements list. I'm not sure if that's what you were referring to as the staff that they're looking for have to meet certain requirements, have to have certain certifications, have to have certain knowledge. Those are provided at a customer level whenever they're going out to look for staff to meet their needs. There were, in regards to whether or not you have to be Texas-based, you don't have to be Texas-based, but remember, these are services and you have to be able to meet that need within the scope. So if the customer is requiring to be on site, then you have to figure out how your staff is going to be on site at that state agency where they need those services provided. So you still need to be able to meet the need of the RFO and the customers that are going to be requesting these services through the RFO. Looks like we still have a few questions unanswered, and
I think I have
15
one
minutes
more that we did not answer.
Okay.
Oh, no, two more. Do hubs being on limited resources get relaxation on documentation requirements, ergo accessibility documentation and training requirements?
Let me take that one.
Yes,
If you
ma'am.
want to, if you want to be a prime vendor, then there's no relaxation on requirements. If you're wanting to be a subcontractor on somebody else's contract, that agreement is with you and the prime vendor and not with the DIR. But in order to be a responsive vendor on the RFO, you have to meet all of the requirements for the RFO to submit a proposal and be awarded a contract. You can submit obviously without all the requirements, but you would not be moving to the next stage for negotiation and award unless you met all of the requirements for the RFO.
Okay, next question. What has been the historic ratio of staff AUG solicitations as compared to hardware, software, or services?
I'm not sure that I understand that question because those are completely different contracts and they're
Yes.
utilized different. So hardware, software, people are going and buying computers, licenses, which is different because those are like shipped and loaded. Whereas staff aug services is a person that they are paying the hourly rate for to do services. So they're completely different types of offerings under the DIR contracts. It wouldn't be a direct comparison.
Okay, and next question. Does the vendor have to be established in the USA to participate in the RFO?
That one I'm going to defer to our legal team to answer because it depends. So again, these are services. We have a data location clause in our contracts that does not allow data to be offshore. And it's very difficult to provide services in a building if you're not able to get to that physical location. But for the official response, I'm going to defer to our legal team to answer that particular question.
Okay. Okay, we got one more question. And I'm trying to get to the bottom of the. I think this one is going to have to go to legal too. It says, are there any specific criteria that an out-of-state corporation must follow to participate in this RFO?
You have to be eligible to do business in the state of Texas, which requires you to be registered with the comptroller's office and be in good standing. And it also requires you to be registered with the Texas Secretary of State and be in good standing.
Okay. What is this? We just got a bunch of more questions. As a first respondent, what is most important for me to have prepared, completed before September 1 release?
Read through everything that we've posted so far. And you can prepare through the ways that Vanya described earlier, which is, getting your entity set up with the Texas Secretary of State as well as the Texas Comptroller's office to make sure they have all the documentation that they need. You need to be able to be ready to respond to the solicitation when it comes in. We're still in the planning phases of this, so we don't have all the information for the solicitation put together. This is more information for you all to get prepared. And then you can actually start looking to see if you're going to subcontract or work on anything for the hub portion of this and be prepared in that way as well.
Okay. Are you wanting suggestions on what staffing you should include? We welcome the feedback. If you feel like there are some roles or titles that we don't have, we will welcome the feedback or the suggestion, because we are still in the planning phase of the RFO, and so we have not published yet. We got another question. Will this again include a request for resume and SOW option?
Yes. That's how our customers determine whether or not you meet the requirements that they're looking for. They request the resumes of the staff that you're submitting for a potential project. That's determined at a customer level.
Yes. Is any preference given to Texas-based firms and or firms part of a previous staff augmentation contract?
For previous staff augmentation project, there's not necessarily, so we ask for your experience. You will have to determine your experience and where your experience was at and who your customers were on those experience. We look at references. There's different criteria in there that is given to vendors who have had experience previously. If you don't have that experience, you need to demonstrate how you're going to meet the need of the DIR customers in your response. The response criteria has history and experience, as well as how you're going to perform the services under a contract, should you be awarded a contract under this RFO. So once we release the solicitation, you'll need to respond accordingly as to how it fits with your company.
Okay. we got, is there anything new coming out with this contract, like how SOW and intern were new offerings last time?
We're not sure at this point. That's still a work in progress.
Yes. May we reply as a prime contracting firm as well as be a subcontractor with another prime contracting firm?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you may. You would just work with the other prime to be included in their subcontracting plan.
Okay. I think that's all the questions that I see submitted so far.
Did you answer the AI question?
Uh-oh. Expand artificial intelligence, machine learning engineer to include more roles. Consider artificial intelligence as a category.
So we actually have a completely separate AI solicitation that is already in evaluation and or negotiation and award phase. So AI is slightly different and it's handled differently as far as those services because it does require generally programming and things along those natures. But if you're interested in AI, be on the lookout for vendors who have been awarded those AI contracts, and you may talk to them about how you can help them with their offerings.
Hey, let's see. We have
I think we got all the rest of them.
I think we got all of them.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll move on to the next slide. This will conclude our conference. Again, we will be providing points of contact. General inquiries, please send them to myself, Alexis Jimerson. Bid stamp VIS inquiries, please send them to Stephanie Harrison. Hub subcontracting plan, please email Teresa Williamson or the dir.hub@dir.texas.gov email box, which again, we prefer you send it to the group email box so that all of the hub section can have access and possibly answer your inquiry more quickly. DIR will be posting the slide deck and recording link as we previously stated, and the sign-in sheets, and at the link provided on this slide. And this is a link to the ESPD. Thank you for attending. We appreciate your participation, and you have a great rest of your day.